let's go to the dominant scale now, and letter C, and there are a couple different things to do there. So you can see again I got 3 chord voicings written there. C7, E minor 7 flat 5 on the 3rd, G minor 7 is on the 5th, okay? I think just to kind of make a general statement about that, Barry decided to call this the important minor of the dominant, and that's kind of what he called it. The important minor is the chord on the 5th of a dominant scale. The chord on the 3rd, in this case we have E minor 7 flat 5, and I would mark this as a key point as well, because this tells us that when we have E minor 7 flat 5, for instance, going to A7, it often does, if we were playing something like that, I'm in F major, E minor 7 flat 5 to A7. Okay, what am I going to play? How am I going to think of soloing? Well, E minor 7 flat 5, we have to go back to the scale this chord is found on. And a minor 7 flat 5 chord, in terms of soloing, is found in one place, and that's the 3rd of a dominant 7th scale. And that's where you can see it in that example. So, if I go up and down the scale, I'm playing 2 bars of C7. I'm also playing G minor 7 to C7. Now, if you're a chord player or a bass player, that's what you're going to do. Horn player, singer, guitar player who's soloing is not going to play G minor 7. That is a chord. That's what the chord players and bass player plays, while the soloists play C7 for both. Now, there's other things you can do, but that's the primary choice. Now, when the chord is E minor 7 flat 5 to A7, we run 2 scales together. So that last point, number D, speaks about playing that dominant scale. Just as we did with the major, we land on the flat 2 of that dominant scale, which more correctly is the 3rd of A7. Why? Because E minor 7 flat 5 often takes us to A7. So, that sounds E minor 7 flat 5 to A7. If it was 1 bar, I'd just start on the 7th of C and come down to the 3rd of A. Right, that kind of thing. So that's really key stuff. If you haven't thought of it this way, it's really worth thinking about, particularly if you're like a line player, like a horn player, for instance, guitar player. This kind of is a way of anchoring yourself to the harmony when you're playing. Because otherwise you're just playing single notes. And you know, one of my favorite examples of listening to somebody who was obviously masterful at doing this was Sonny Rollins, who would often play in a chordless trio. But if you heard him solo, you could hear the changes in his solo. And so it's really important to kind of track that stuff as you're playing. It will solve getting lost, for instance. It will alert you to different scale choices as you're playing. You know, it's all sorts of fun stuff. So as you're learning, as you're practicing these scales, don't think that this is just warm-up stuff. Think that this is really tied to chord changes. And that's how I suggest you do it.